I'm Vivian, and, and there I am. Sorry. Not to try and top Dr. Cabarrus, but I'm from Deep Run, and we have a population of less than 200. At some point, it swelled over 300, but it's less now. So I had to tell you all a funny story. About 3 Sundays ago, my mother was bringing my children home from church, and she pulled in to the driveway, and she pulled out this flyer that had my photo on it from these events. And she said, "Do you know anything about this?" I said, "Yes, I do. I've signed up to do this." And she said, "Well, what in the world are you going to talk about?" She said, "You don't know anything about heart disease or health or nutrition." I said, "Well, you know, I think I've been told to, you know, talk about cooking, actually cooking, and also to talk about myself." And she said, "But if these people watch the show, they already know everything about you." And, you know, she has a point, because we have basically spent the last 4 years of our lives with a camera around. So you do know quite a bit. So I thought that if I'm going to share something that you don't know, I would answer my most frequently asked questions. So one of the primary questions I always get is, how in the world did you land this Pbs deal? And I love that question, and I love to talk about it because I think it's a great testament to the power behind following your dreams, and how you never really land anything. About 4.5 years ago, I was invited by my neighbors. At the time, I lived in Jones County, the least populated county in our state. I was invited by my neighbors to make collard kraut. And I, at the time, felt like I knew everything there was to know about Southern cooking. And so I was really amused at the idea of making collard kraut, something I had never heard of. I'd certainly heard of sauerkraut. So these 4 60-plus-year-old gentlemen invited me into their back shed on a cold November morning, and they started explaining the folklore behind making collard kraut. And there were all these rules. So, you know, first of all, you cannot make collard kraut when the Farmer's Almanac says the sun and the moon are in the sign of the bowels. I still don't know what that means. Women, except for this day in particular, are not allowed to participate in making kraut. They only make kraut from the same strain of collards, the same seed that they've been doing it for 150 years. And they use the same equipment that they've had in the family for 100 years. So I was sitting there watching these men do this and just completely dumbfounded. And I left that experience overwhelmed and excited. Something people don't know about me is that I came to cooking because I wanted to be a food writer. So I started working in kitchens as a means to like get close to the action and have an inside story. But really I was trying to avoid writing. And what I found was that working in a kitchen was something I really enjoyed, and I loved the camaraderie and the team feeling of it all. And I liked not sitting at a desk. So that's how I came to cooking. So after this collard kraut experience, I was electrified, and I wrote the first thing I had written since college, which was a blog about my experience. And then I became extremely fixated on the idea of documenting these dying food traditions of Eastern North Carolina, like making collard kraut, like putting up corn, like hog killings, the things that I grew up seeing a little bit of, but really hearing my sisters and my parents and my grandparents talk about. I knew that these things, there were no young people in that shed with us that day. You know, none of these none of these gentlemen's children or even grandchildren were interested in learning about this collared kraut. So I wanted to shine a light on this strange experience. So I started talking about it, and I was fixated on it, and my husband goes, well, please figure out a way to do this, because you're driving me crazy. So we had an acquaintance, Cynthia Hill, who also grew up in eastern North Carolina, in Pink Hill, actually, about 10 minutes from Deep Run. And I knew that she was a documentary filmmaker, and she had made a film called Tobacco Money Feeds My Family. And I thought that it was a beautiful film and that she would understand the story of eastern North Carolina. So I called her and asked if she had an intern or something that would help me do this. And she was silent on the other end of the line for quite some time. And she said, you know, I'm in between projects, so I'll just come down on a Saturday. My husband is a cinematographer, and we'll experiment. So at the time, I thought I was going to be like a reporter, you know, explaining what these people were doing and, you know, being the tour guide and leading. I had no real understanding that this was going to consume my whole life. So we experimented around the subject of sweet corn. My family put up corn. I cooked with corn in the restaurant. I went to the farmer that we buy corn from, and we learned about corn from all of these different perspectives. And it ended up being a really well-rounded little clip, if you will. So we thought that we had a winner, and we took it to the Food Network. We had this high-powered producer in New York who took it to the Food Network, or at least he said he did. We don't even know. And they hated it. They said that no one knows who this girl is, and she needs somebody to do her hair and makeup. So, but we still felt really strongly that this was special, so we decided that we would take it to UNC TV. And they said the same thing. They said, really, you need to figure out what this is. Is this a cooking show or is this a documentary? Because it can't be both. So that really stung a little bit because we still felt like this was something very special. And Cynthia had an acquaintance at South Carolina Television, and she said, well, I'm going to try one more person. And she sent them our clip, which is about 20 minutes long. And Amy Shoemaker from SCTV called within 20 minutes. She watched it right away. She called within 20 minutes and said, I think this is really special. I want to take it to Big PBS, that's what we call it. And so she then took it to Big PBS, and Big PBS said, we think we like this. Why don't you make 12 more and call it a season, and then we'll consider airing it. So I tell you all this because we then decided that we were going to do whatever we could to make 12 more with no budget and full-time jobs for everyone in the production all around, other than the show. So we went about raising money in eastern North Carolina. We did a Kickstarter campaign, and we made 12 more. And at the last minute, Big PBS said, okay, we'll air it. So it was a very long journey, and it continues to be, but I think it's just, I feel so lucky to be a part of something that's so special and so important for our region. I think we are doing a lot to preserve at least the memory and the story of these food traditions, and I think we're doing a lot to, I think the show is doing a lot to bring pride back to a lot of folks in eastern North Carolina for the place that they live and the way that they grew up. And that was never my intention, but it's been really the most rewarding thing to come out of this. So that's what I was going to tell you about myself. It's a story people don't often get to hear. But if you have young people or older people in your life who have a dream, share that story with them because, you know, it's, I think it can be inspiring. So now I'm going to talk about cooking, which is theoretically what I do, except now I do a lot of this stuff too. And you know, really our mantra at Chef and the Farmer is to cook seasonally, cook locally, but mostly just to cook. And I'm a big proponent of supporting local agriculture and farmers markets. But let's be honest, nobody in this room is going to a farmers market in the next 3 weeks. Not even me. But we continue at Chef and the Farmer to cook with ingredients that work this time of year. And one of the things that we turn to, I guess I can move from there, sorry. One of the things that we turn to every winter are dried peas and beans and legumes. You know, field peas, butter beans, lima beans, black-eyed peas. These are things that we all grew up with here. I grew up with a pot of field peas on the back of the stove nearly every day, it seemed, growing up. I remember them because I didn't like them, and the smell of them really bothered me. My mother and my grandmother would simmer them with some ham hock or some fatback or some side meat, always a pork product. But tonight, I'm going to talk to you about how you can treat field peas or buttered beans in a different way. One of the questions I got recently when doing a cooking demo that I found really interesting, it was a young girl, she was about 5 years old, and she asked me how I chose what to make for my cooking demos. And I had to think about that for a minute. And one of my big goals when I do a demo is to make sure that everyone in the room can access those ingredients, because I hate nothing more than watching something on the Food Network that requires me to drive to Raleigh to Whole Foods to make it. So I wanted to make sure that everything we make today is something that you can access in Eastern North Carolina at your local Piggly Wiggly if need be. So we've got some dried field peas here, very basic. These are the really tiny, teeny tiny field peas. You could use butter beans, you could use black-eyed peas, you could use lima beans. They would all work. So I rehydrate these in water overnight. And then from there, I cook them in just plain water. I put a bay leaf, maybe some black pepper in the water, but I do not put salt, okay? So I cook these in this plain water, and then I season that water with salt. The reason you do that is because if you add salt to legumes too early, it will make the skins tough, and it will encourage you to cook them so long that they fall apart. So really the proper way to cook beans and legumes is to salt them after they are cooked. Now my mom would just, I'm glad she's not here right now because she'd come up here and tell me what I was doing wrong. But if you're simmering black-eyed peas with ham hock, it doesn't matter if some of them fall apart. We're often looking for that kind of gravy experience. But today, I'm looking for individual little field peas. So I've got these field peas and a smoking pan. So I've got these field peas here, and this whole dish was kind of inspired by covered dish lunches that I went to at church and family reunions, where there was this like pot of marinated green beans and peas and corn and oil and sugar, all sitting at the end of the table, all canned vegetables probably, that looked at once disgusting to me, but also very intriguing. And it generally had enough sugar in it that I enjoyed eating it. So this is inspired by that, but not that at all, okay? So I've got my field peas. To that, I'm going to add something for texture. You know, in all of my dishes, I'm always trying to achieve a sense of balance. So you want to have a variety of textures in whatever you're making. So we've got the supple field peas. We've got crunchy celery. We've got some red onions that I've marinated in red wine vinegar and honey. You know, I love onions. I cook with them all the time. I also use them raw, but a lot of people just cannot stand a raw red onion. So marinating them in vinegar and honey is really going to calm them down, take away their odor, and take away that harsh, strong flavor that we often associate with raw onions. you know, I grew up thinking that the only vinegar in the world was apple cider vinegar. But as it turns out, there's a lot of other vinegars out there, and you should give them a try. I love red wine vinegar. It is a little more subtle and less in your face than apple cider vinegar. So that's what I've used here. So I'm going to stir that into my field peas. And you can't really see, I don't think. There we go. But this is turning out to be a very pretty and brightly colored salad. So to that, I'm going to add some flat leaf parsley. You know, flat leaf parsley or curly parsley would do the same thing. It's not like other herbs, other soft herbs like basil, thyme, cilantro. It's not like those in that you can put it in this salad and add like a gallon of lemon juice to it, come back 3 days later, and it will still be bright green and crispy. So flat leaf parsley is a nice addition to things that you're going to allow to marinate. And it makes for a beautiful color. As I said, I'm trying to achieve balance, both in texture and in color. Because I do believe, I'm sure you've heard this before from other folks, that you eat with your eyes first. So you could certainly have this salad represented just in this way, but to make it, I like to use this word in the kitchen. If it's inappropriate, I apologize. To make it sexy, I'm going to add some shrimp that I've just poached in salted water, essentially. And all that's important about that is that you don't want to cook them too long. And a lot of times we're told to cook our shrimp in this way and then put them in ice water. And I do not recommend that because, in my opinion, the ice water washes away what's left of the shrimp flavor and of the salted water. So you want to take them out of the boiling water and just spread them out on a cookie sheet and slide them into your refrigerator. That's going to give you the best shrimp you can possibly achieve at home. So we've got our shrimp, our celery, our red onion, and our parsley in here. And now I'm going to kind of build the marinade. So I'm going to take some lemon juice, which I love citrus. And particularly this time of year, citrus is something that really brightens up winter plates. I love using lemons, lemon zest, oranges, orange zest. So lemon, and then another vinegar that's in the world beyond apple cider vinegar, which is sherry vinegar. The combination of lemon juice and sherry vinegar is classic and delicious. And yes, I did check, you can buy sherry vinegar at Piggly Wiggly. So we're all good there. So I've got sherry vinegar, lemon juice. I'm going to add some salt. I'm a big believer in kosher salt. I grew up using iodized salt, but I find that I can really control my salt levels with kosher salt better. And I've gotten a lot of flack for the amount of salt that I use on the show. You know, people write in and they're just so worried about how much salt I'm using. But really, you know, you get most of your sodium from prepackaged and prepared foods with a lot of preservatives in them, things that come out of a can or things that are already made. And when you're cooking from scratch, you know what goes into your food. So I know exactly how much salt I just put in there, and I assure you it's not too much, okay? All right, so I've got my salt, and now I'm going to add a little honey. You know, in Southern food, we love to have that little bit of sweet, and I think that's one way that we achieve a lot of balance. You know, in my mother's kitchen, I'm not picking on her, but in my mother's kitchen, we would have used granulated sugar here, but I think honey lends more flavor, and a lot of people believe that there's quite a few health benefits associated with using honey. So I'm going to stir this honey in. And I'm going to set this aside. And the really nice thing about this, and I suspect the reason that I found it on so many covered dish tables is that moms and grandmas could make this the day before and just pack it up and take it with them the day of. So they didn't have to spend their time making that. And this really improves from sitting overnight. So at this point, I've got my pea and shrimp salad sitting here in the refrigerator, getting better with time. And I'm going to make a dressing for it. You know, this dressing is inspired by something I've had in a lot of steakhouses. It's inspired by a spinach salad with a hot bacon vinaigrette. So, you know, we think about a vinaigrette as being a combination of vinegar and oil, an emulsification often. And that's what we're going to do here, but instead of using an olive oil or canola oil, we're going to use bacon fat as our oil. And you know, I hear a lot of noise about that, but I believe, you know, and I know what the noise is for, but I'm a big believer in the fact that eating healthy on a regular basis is about moderation and enjoying your food and savoring your food and sitting down to eat, and I don't mean in the car. So a little bit of bacon and a little bit of bacon fat is not a bad thing. Maybe like a braided bacon pork roast for dinner may not be the best choice, but a little bit of crumbled bacon on top of a pea salad I think is actually a very healthy, balanced plate. So I've got my bacon, I'm taking it out, it's crispy now, and I have my bacon fat in here. So now I'm going to start building my vinaigrette. So I've got some sliced garlic. I'm going to add it to the hot bacon fat. I don't know if y'all can smell this, but it does smell really good. So this is another one of my pet peeves. I see a lot of people cooking on TV, and they have a lot of brown garlic. Brown garlic is burnt garlic, is bitter garlic, okay? I'll go to the mat for that. So we don't want any color on our garlic here. So I've taken this off the heat. I've added some chili flakes. I have some red bell pepper slices that I'm just going to add to this bacon fat. It's going to cool the fat down. It's going to allow that garlic not to brown anymore, and it's sizzling just a little bit. So to this, I'm going to add a little honey, because we do want there to be a little sweetness in this dressing. A little more lemon juice, because a vinaigrette is a emulsification of acid and oil, and a little sherry vinegar. And we're going to bubble that all up, and I'm going to turn this off. So just before serving this salad, you've got everything nice and marinated and balanced and crunchy and pretty, and it's great. Now we're going to add some mint, some chopped mint. I love mint. Particularly in the winter, and particularly not on desserts. You know, we think of mint like a sprig of mint on a dessert, but there's so many more uses for mint than just a sprig on dessert. You know, mint can really brighten up dull plates, really brighten your palate, and it's a great foil for rich things. So the reason I'm adding this mint now is because if I had added it last night before I put this in the refrigerator, the mint would have turned brown and gross. Okay, so you want to add it at the last minute. I'm also going to add olive oil at the last minute. So, you know, why not add it last night? Because the olive oil would encourage all of these flavor-providing ingredients like the lemon juice, like the sherry vinegar, like the onions, would allow all those things to slick off the peas. So you want to give them the best opportunity they have to soak into the peas, and then add the oil at the last minute. So I've got my olive oil in here and my mint, and I'm just going to plate a little one of these so you can see what it would look like at my house. I can't guarantee it'll look like this at your house, but if you came to mine, it would. So I like to take these plates with me when I do cooking demos. You know, I so notoriously now am known for having always wanted to leave Eastern North Carolina and saying I would never come back. But now that I'm back and I am so immersed in our culture, I'm kind of obsessed with all things from my past and my family's past. So several months ago, I went through our junk building on the farm. A lot of people who live on farms have one of these. And I found all of my grandmother's old dishes. And they're so beautiful to me. And so I like to treasure them and share them with people. So I've got that really nice salad on my grandmother's plate. And I'm going to finish it with some of this vinaigrette that's very well seasoned and balanced and smells awesome, and just drizzle a little bit around, and you can use as little or as much as you want. It's really about not drenching the salad in the vinaigrette, and then finish it with this crispy bacon. So, you know, we all hear about eating salads, and we should eat salads to make us thin and happy and live forever. But you know, if I had to eat lettuce salads for every day for the rest of my life, I don't think I'd want to live forever. So this is just an attempt to get y'all to think about salads in a different way. Peas and beans are incredibly healthy. They have lots of fiber. They have lots of vitamin K, which allows you to absorb calcium. They help lower your glycemic index. These are all things I've Googled, and I'm just regurgitating. But I was going to show my mom that I did know a little bit about this stuff. Okay, so we've got this over here. So the next thing I'm going to show you, and kind of a fun thing to do with the same type of bean or legume, is to make our restaurant's kind of famous butter bean hummus. If you've ever been to Chef and the Farmer, in the first like 5 years, we used to always have this on the menu. And the reason we had it on the menu is because it's what I ate for lunch every day. And I could not bring myself to take it off. So what I've taken here, I again rehydrated some butter beans and then cooked them in water with a bay leaf and black pepper. I'm going to add that to my food processor. So these I cooked to death. I cooked them till they were falling apart, because what I want is to, in the end, have a smooth dip or smooth spread. So hummus is something that, you know, 10 years ago we would never have seen here in Eastern North Carolina. But now you can go to just about any Walmart and they have like 4 different varieties of hummus. You cannot buy hummus at Piggly Wiggly yet, but you can buy the ingredients to make your own, okay? So we've got our butter beans in here. To this I'm going to add what I like to call a pantry item at Chef and the Farmer, and this is poached garlic. It's very easy to make, and in your bags I have instructions for how to make this. I'll explain it very briefly. So what we do at the restaurant, except during the summer, is we buy peeled garlic. So it's just peeled garlic cloves. You can buy that at a grocery store. It comes in a little container. It's in the produce section. So I take this peeled garlic, or you can peel all the cloves yourself, but I would recommend buying the peeled garlic. So you take this garlic, you put it in a little heavy bottom saucepan, cover it with olive oil, and put that on your stove on the lowest heat you have. It'll slowly come up to a simmer, allow it to cook for about 20 minutes, and then you've got this very soft, very fragrant, non-brown garlic. So I'm going to add quite a bit of it to these butter beans, as well as some of the oil. So you've got this really cool thing. You've just made 2 things. You've made 2 ingredients. You've got your roasted garlic or poached garlic, as well as garlic oil. So you should always store this in the refrigerator after you're done with it, but it's a great thing to add to soups or sauteed vegetables, or like a baked potato. Stir this in instead of butter. It's really very wonderful. And I know there's a lot of health benefits to garlic. I don't know what they are, but I know that there are. And then here I have something that you can, again, not buy at Piggly Wiggly, but you can buy a substitute. This is tahini. This is sesame paste, which is going to add like a very nice nutty flavor. And it is really the ingredient that I consider what makes hummus hummus. So if you cannot find tahini, you can always use peanut butter. And I've used it many times at home, and honestly, even with this palette, I couldn't tell the difference. Y'all were supposed to laugh at that. Sorry. Okay. Y'all are failing me over here. Thanks. All right, so the next ingredient I'm going to add is also a quintessential ingredient for hummus, which is lemon juice, and lots of it. And then I'm going to add a little water just to kind of get this all going, and some salt. So, you know, if you're making hummus with whatever bean you like, you can use chickpeas. Chickpeas are the most traditional bean or pea to make hummus with, but you could do it with anything. You could do it with black-eyed peas. You could do it with lima beans. You could do it with black beans. But at this point, you could add anything you want. You could add roasted red peppers. You could add blanched spinach, puree it in, make it even more healthy. I'm just going to blend this up. And if I were at home or at the restaurant right now, I would just turn this on and walk away and let it go for about 3 minutes, because what you're really trying to achieve is a smooth spread, and you want to break up all those little bean skins. But I'm not going to let it run for 3 minutes because that would be painful for all of us. So the way that I like to eat this is with some pita bread or some pita chips, or on a piece of toast with some broccoli sprouts and avocado, nice tomatoes if you have them. It's a great way to build a sandwich, as well as a really nice snack. Actually, my favorite way to eat it is with some flatbread that we make at the restaurant and a pickled vegetable relish, because this is rich and really kind of luxurious, and I love to seek that balance and pair it with something pickly and bright. So I guess the message today is that we should really do our best to enjoy our food, enjoy our time eating, enjoy the people that we're eating with, try to find balance in our food, and if we can, and I'm a terrible person to preach this, find balance in our life. One of the other messages that I like to share that I had hoped to work into what I was saying, but I never did, is that I feel like when we go to the grocery store, we don't really know what to do. But if we're trying to eat healthy and trying to cook, I always try to encourage people to shop in the perimeter of their grocery store. You know, there's really very few reasons to go in the middle aisles. So if you can shop mostly in the perimeter, then you'll be doing yourself and your family a favor. That being said, I really want to thank you all very much for having me and listening to all this tonight, and I'm honored to be here and honored to be a fellow Eastern North Carolinian.